Hey everybody, Jim Johnson here, and I wanted to give you a heads up about the content of the accents class. We're going to go through 7 different accents. The very first session, actually, we're not going to practice an accent. Instead, we're going to work on certain principles that tie them all together. So I'm going to introduce you to the phonetic alphabet. This is just the vowel chart, which I don't want you to get overwhelmed by that already, because what I'm going to do is basically share with you the things that are really essential about it, the things that can be really helpful, and then you'll have a way to think about a lot of the things coming up. In addition, we'll go into placement and intonation, a couple of major elements of working on accents, and then a number of principles that we're going to hit again and again with each one of the accents that we work on. So specifically what we're going to do is we're actually going to go to England first to start with London, or at least the south of England, to work on RP, Standard British. So RP, Standard British, that sort of classic British sound, the upper class British. That's where we're going to start, partially because that's a useful accent for you to have access to, even though, funnily enough, people don't tend to speak with full-on classic RP anymore. But it is the target accent for a lot of people who are ESL, English as a Second Language, speakers around the world. Most of the world, that is their target. And there are certain principles within RP that are going to carry over into many other accents, both ESL and native speaker of English accents. In addition to that, we're going to then move on to Cockney, that sort of working class London accent. And then we'll move beyond that into Estuary, which is sort of in the middle. And that's the modern version of what you could call relaxed RP or modern RP. And we'll play around with that, of variations that can happen within that. And there are principles that happen within these accents that we will talk about how that carries over through the rest of accents of England and also other accents around the world. Then what we'll do is we'll go to New York and we'll dive into that New York, especially focused on more the Brooklyn accent. So we'll go to Brooklyn and we'll talk about variations between Brooklyn and the Bronx stereotype, and also like New York Jewish and some other elements that are New York accents. And we'll also go into details about other accents of North America, so that you'll understand a lot of ways to frame future accent travels that you do as you're taking on more and more accents. Then what we'll do is we'll go back over to the UK and we will work specifically on the Irish accent of Northern Ireland, or the northern part of the Ulster accent, because it'll be also north of Northern Ireland where that will happen. So that Northern Irish accent that has this intonation. And we want to work on that because that's like an extreme version of this intonation, which is really essential because it carries over into many other accents as well. Like when you go to Caribbean accents, you get a very similar element of the intonation. You'll hear that in a more of like that strong stereotypical working class Mexican accent. You'll hear that same kind of intonation there, and you'll hear it in many other accents as well. Then what we'll do is we'll go into ESL, English as a Second Language accents, starting specifically with France. We're going to work on the French accent and working specifically on the intonation of a French accent, this lift of it, and also there's an element of the placement of French that is dual, both in the back and the front, and we want to work on that element of dual placement in this because it will carry over into some other accents like German as well. There are elements that carry over if we just change the intonation of it. Then we go from French more towards a German sound, especially Northern German, as I'm doing now. And it also carries over into more of a Southern German or Austrian accent as well. Then what we will do is go to Spain and work on some elements that are important for Spain, but are also important for Spanish accents in general. And the element of the Spain accent that's very plucky like this, that carries over into many other accents as well. So what we're going to be doing, in addition to working on sort of these specific accents, is I want to teach you principles that relate to accents from around the world. So though you are working on these 7 specifically during that class time, I want to focus on how do those elements of those accents teach you how to be able to work on other accents. So even though it seems like we're working on those, we're actually working on how to learn any accent. You will get materials from me that are designed specifically for the course. You'll also get additional materials that I've been developing for years with recordings of native speakers and teaching materials that will lead you through accents. You'll get the entire collection of materials as I've developed them up to this point. There you go. I hope to see you very soon.